Bonjour.
Bonsoir, dear friends. I'm with a phenomenal lady. We're going to have so much fun today on our JCB Live here at the JCB Lounge in San Helena. We are with the famous Sasha Paulsen, amazing writer, incredible journalist. If you read the Napa Valley Register, which you all do, and if you don't, you may want to think about it. Wherever you are in the world, she runs it and she is charismatic. She is a phenomenal lady and an icon here in Napa Valley. We're so thrilled because not too long ago, I was with Sasha and she said, I just finished my book. And says, which one? So we all knew about the first one. We'll tell you a little bit about it. But she wrote a second one which just came out. So she accepted, she doesn't do that often, to do an interview with us. So I'm very pleased, dear friend, besides what she does so well as a journalist, to tell us all about her writing career. So Sasha, we should first start and foremost with a toast.
Absolutely.
To your continued success.
Thank you. And to yours.
Thank you. So, well, first of all, santé, when we do this, we have to drink. If not, it's not a good sign.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Thank you, JCB 21, a classic.
That is a classic.
So, Sasha, you've been an incredible writer. So how did you, as many friends want them to dive into you, decide to be a writer, a journalist, or to go into the world of literature and writing? How did that happen?
Well, I think if you love to read, then the next step is to write. And as a kid, I loved to read. And the idea of becoming a writer and telling stories too, is very exciting. I didn't really plan to be a journalist. I thought I would be a novelist. And when I was in college, I started writing novels, very bad.
Wow. But already at college.
Yeah, they were very bad. But then I graduated and I went to work for a politician. Mm-hmm. And that was not a real success because
because he didn't win.
No, he won, but he said, you like journalists too much. And well, he fired me at one point. And he said,
always good.
You'll never make it in politics. I think you belong on the other side in journalism.
Good advice, maybe.
Yeah. So
well, we obviously succeeded.
It was good advice. And so I decided I would apply to Berkeley, to their journalism school.
Wow. Very famous, dear friends. If you're not from the US, this is the school. You have Columbia, maybe, which is another great one.
It's not bad.
But Berkeley is the one.
Yeah. But I needed a writing sample.
Yeah.
And all I had was political writing that I had done. Not very good. So I had traveled to the Kingdom of Tonga in the South Pacific. And it had made such an impression on me because it was just these kind of overlooked islands out in the middle of nowhere. And I had an idea for a novel. And so I wrote the first chapter, and I sent that to Berkeley as my writing sample. I don't know why they accepted me.
Well, obviously, look at this. This is why.
I always wondered, it's like I sent them part of a novel, and they accepted me. So then I went to Berkeley and then started doing journalism as well.
Yes.
But I kept the idea for the novels, the very bad novels even, they're the gem of something. And so I kept them and have been working on them over the years.
Well, this is exciting. So
finished.
this has been, in fact, many, many years in the making.
Many years.
A few decades, dear friends.
Decades, yeah. So I hope, like wine, it has aged all right, the story.
For sure. Well, let's start with this one because we'll go back to your journalist years as well. But the big news, dear friend, as you're watching this, you could go to all your stores and obviously find this incredible book. First, the way Sasha is dressed today matches perfectly Where Time Begins, a novel by Sasha Paulsen. I love the cover. So maybe, Sasha, you tell us all about the book and why we should read it, because Island of Tonga dear friend, if you don't know where that is, this is kind of the most peaceful island in the world with incredible people and a great place to be.
The people are really what make it. They don't get as many tourists because they're not the beautiful mountainous islands like Tahiti, but the people, the warmth, their generosity, their love of life, their love of parties and food and all the good things that you always celebrate.
For sure,
That was, I found that there. Even though there have been all these efforts to bring in missionaries and try to change their culture, they just seem to me to retain this Polynesian love of life and music and dancing and eating.
And they resisted well, then. That's good.
Yeah, I think so.
So tell us about this kingdom of Tonga and about Shelley, who is traveling.
Yes.
And give us not everything about the book because we want everybody to get it and buy it and read it, but give us some further clues.
Okay. Well, Shelley Illilouette is at the beginning of this book. She's lost her job. She can't find another job. Her rent is due. Her life is kind of in disarray, which my younger daughter tells me this is something that, a lot of people she thinks could identify with. I think so. Don't we all go through this point in life where we're
doesn't?
What am I doing with my life and what am I going to do? And she's avoiding a romance with a man from her past. So she's offered a job unexpectedly in the Kingdom of Tonga. Doesn't know where it is. A lot of people think it's in Africa, in fact.
Yeah.
When I first was invited to go there, I didn't know where it was. And the librarian said, yes, most people think it's in Africa. But in fact, it's it's about 100 islands, like a necklace in the Pacific.
Ooh.
And it's very close to the international date line. So the only thing that she knows when she decides to take the job is that the king of Tonga said it's where time begins because it's by the date line. So
here we go.
So that's stuck. And it was my literary agent who, I had a different name for it. I was going to call it The Hero of Paradise Lost.
Well, which is a good name too.
But she said, let's call it this. And I said, oh, works for me. So,
well, that's a great name.
Yeah.
The island where time begins.
Yeah. So there are all sorts of possibilities. So is she going to be able to reinvent her life, or, what's going to happen when she lands on these islands? And she arrives there, and the woman who hired her, an artist who was married to a Frenchman. He's very important in the book.
Thank you for bringing the French into the play.
Absolutely. And so she's hired Shelley long distance, so Shelley's never met her. She arrives in Tonga. The woman has disappeared. So here she is, all alone in these islands where she knows no one, and she's going to try to find her employer and find out what happened to her. And she's sort of befriended by Tongans, and
they are a good-looking man.
Oh,
and certainly gorgeous women. And I could tell you a story on that.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I'd love to hear. So have you been to Tonga?
I've never been, but very fortunately, as you're a three-generation Californian, I met in California a whole delegation of Tonga one time when I was here, and the people were so charming, so phenomenal, so incredibly open-minded, and so gorgeous. It was here at Raymond, in fact, 7-8 years ago, and it was the relationship of the children of the King of Tonga.
Oh,
and
okay.
We had so much fun, and luckily I knew where it was, and
Good.
You never know sometimes. But I love how you describe it, the necklace of islands, where time begins. Beautiful.
So it's...
So she meet the locals, and don't tell us too much either, because we want everyone to read it.
Well, she finds a place to stay with a Tongan woman named Toyota, who decides to help her improve her life.
Yes.
Why worry about a job? We just have to get you a little bit fatter so that you can find a nice husband, and just the things that will really make life good. Because as you said, the Tongans are large people, and Shelley is just a skinny American, And so she just falls into all sorts of adventures, but by way of being adopted by the Tongans, and then the lover that she was trying to avoid follows her to Tonga, and he turns up there, and so this creates great drama for everyone.
Your life.
So anyway.
So you escape do you suggest that people should escape like this when they want a new life and reinvent themselves? Is that a good idea?
Oh, I say why not? If it works for you.
Good advice for all of us.
It may not be. Sometimes just removing yourself from where you are, you see everything in a whole new perspective.
That's right.
I think. So why not? The whole world is out there, and it's so full of adventures and excitement that you never know what you're going to come on.
And did you translate in adventure then Sasha herself wanted to live into her character? Is it you and your dream?
No. That's the fun part, really, of fiction.
Yes.
When you work in journalism, we really do try to tell the truth and get the story right. And then you can move into fiction and you can recreate worlds. And so all the characters in both books, they are they're bits and pieces of people that I've met. Something someone said here, put together with something else, something I saw here. There's it's a process. I don't know how else to describe it, except it's probably borderline crazy, because you're just recreating people in your mind, and then they become very real.
How do you leave the fiction world to come back to the reality world? Because I know what it is. I do that through drawings and jewelries and fragrance or winemaking. In a way, you escape, right? And then you come back. And sometimes the return is tough to reality, right? You turn on the news after writing a chapter.
Oh, I know.
So how do you succeed into living in both worlds? That's a great, illustration for everyone to.
Well, I don't, the real world is what feeds your inspiration, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's
Well said.
It's for wine or for jewelry or for drawing or for art, music. You need that to feed the muse.
The muse, exactly.
I wouldn't want to spend my whole life locked in a room writing.
Yes.
I think somehow it's like the well would run dry. Don't you think?
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I'm always impressed. I've had the pleasure to meet, as an example, Danielle Steele.
Oh.
And I see hundreds of books being written within those characters, and other fiction writers as her, maybe not as successful as her, but it's amazing. And they can disappear for a few weeks and write. And it's impressive. Yeah. But yourself, you succeed to serve between the two.
Well, out of necessity, really.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a Danielle Steele, you can spend, weeks writing. I've always got my mortgage to pay, and
don't we all?
Children to feed.
But it's fun
like that,
too.
Goes back and forth.
Yeah, and what do you like in terms of journalism? Because many friends being with us today are journalists as well. So what do you like in that world of journalism?
Well, it's another form of storytelling.
Yes.
And it's a way of telling stories about people who may not even realize how valuable they are and what a story they have to tell. And probably wouldn't write their own story. So as a journalist, you get that privilege. You get to ask them questions.
Yes.
You get to find out about their life, and then you get to tell other people about it.
That's right.
So that's, there are so many fascinating people, even in our little valley.
Yes.
Well,
and you read all around the world. I mean, the Napa Valley Register that you run so well is read all over the world. I mean, there's people subscribing everywhere.
I know. It's a surprise to me, because I grew up in Napa when it was a very different place. It was a quiet little agricultural place. And then I left and came back with my children, and it was suddenly on the national radar, and it was so different. And and it's still a shock to me to see people coming from all over the world to Napa and people celebrating the wine and the artists that are drawn here now. And
Yes.
it's still a surprise to me.
How does it feel to you, in fact, Napa today versus you're a third generation Californian from Napa Valley, and you know the Valley obviously better than anyone, and you were raised here.
Yeah.
How do you see it today?
You know, I think there's still that core there, that the farmers,
Great.
the old timers, people like my mother. You know, she used to say, "I don't know why all these people are coming here." I'd say, "Well, it is a nice place." Well, yeah, I guess it's all right. But you know,
Yes.
that is still there. You know, like where I live in a very simple neighborhood with a lot of people who work in the vineyards and things like that. It's still. It's got a fundamental reality to it. Mm-hmm. It is so much more sophisticated than the Napa I grew up in. Even my children grew up in a much more sophisticated Napa where there were restaurants and theater and, you know, all sorts of arts. And, you know, they've gone to wineries and then now as their friends come, they bring their friends to wineries. Yeah. So that is a good thing, I think. I think that a little more sophistication is not a bad thing.
That's right. Talking about writing, it's amazing that I recently met your charming daughter. Mm-hmm. You know, it's amazing that now she's following you in your footsteps. She's a writer.
A writer and an editor. She's a linguist. Primarily, you know, her love is languages.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Though she's a great, you know, and from mother to, it's not easy.
No, and she's been one of my real props in writing. I mean, she's known about my characters. Obviously, they existed before she was born.
That's right.
So
she must be thrilled. Did she help you to edit this one?
Yeah, she did.
Oh, good.
She very much did. And she pushed me to do it, too. Because, you know, writing is great fun. Yeah. Publishing is a whole different world.
That's right.
I expect it's like, you know, the thrill of making wine is one thing. Then getting it out into the world it's a business, and it's completely different. But necessary because you want people to enjoy your wine, right?
That's right, so, for sure.
You know, so you write a book so that someone will read it, you hope.
Yeah.
And but it is a challenging world, and Ariel has been a real prop. Like, keep on with it, keep doing it.
Yeah.
I haven't lived with these characters all my life to see them just sit on a shelf.
For sure.
So that's been wonderful.
What advice would you give? And please drink your wine because we're gonna go.
Yes.
We're gonna go Pinot, but maybe we can have a little another glass.
I love this.
Would be great.
These are beautiful glasses.
Thank you. So that's the Passion Collection we designed.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, we did that with Baccarat, in fact, and it has been a wonderful.
Oh, I love them.
Wonderful exercise, and Anna, thank you. Look at that. We're gonna get another one, so you could taste both. I drink faster, so I'm all good.
Oh well, I'll catch up. I've been talking too much.
No, it's great. So, what advice would you give? Because you're an amazing personality, Sasha, and you know you're a great mentor, teacher to others as well. For all our friends, and my sister is one. Mm-hmm. Incredible writer, and I think you will meet her at some stage in the future. She doesn't come as much, Natalie, to the US. Natalie, you should. And I want her to write a book. She did write the Bouchard book many years ago from the Bouchard winery. But often, talent like her are scared to go out and to finish the script and to finish the actual writing. And I've had the pleasure to do 3 books so far, and we have 2 coming out.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
How exciting.
And I love it. But what advice would you give to a lot of our friends watching to just do a book? Or to transcribe the story they have in their mind?
Yeah. Well, I think you just have to start and keep at it. Yeah. And I think at first it's kind of, it is a little scary because you don't know where you're going and you don't know quite what you're creating, as you must know too.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know if you find this, but at a certain point, it takes hold of you.
That's right.
And then then you can't leave it. Then you have to see it to its completion. And I think so it's like just getting through those first stages of like, what is this book and who's in this book, or what am I trying to say in this book, or what shape is it going to take? That's kind of, it's almost like your own life too. You can ask yourself the same questions about your life.
And then you go.
And then you go, and then you can't stop.
So dear friends, if you have a book idea, go. Just write it and do like Sasha. Now, this is a big book. I mean, we're talking about here 350 pages.
Oh.
Is there eventually a part 2 or part 3?
Well, these,
because she keeps traveling.
Well, these characters, they do go through a series of books, some of which are still just in my head, some of which are in the very bad draft forms from college. But yeah, I sort of want to take them from like the 1950s to now.
Yeah.
Kind of as, and there's all different characters, so some of them recede and some of them come into prominence. But the story, really begins in Paris.
Aha.
So.
All stories begin in Paris.
I think all stories begin in Paris.
Well, Pinot Noir started in France. At least that's a fact of history.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
so,
I love it.
We selected The Alchemy of Dreams, very appropriate for our discussion. Pinot, and not Napa, but we went Sonoma, so you could taste something else for once.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. No, the Pinots from Sonoma are wonderful. So this is
Sonoma Coast.
Sonoma Coast.
This is a 2018, and you've been to the house on Wapo Hill. This is one of the paintings we defined as the dream through the eyes and the taste and the flavors and all the 5 to 6 to 7 senses that we have displayed on this painting. And this is Wapo on top. This is the cypress as you come in. So this is the Alchemy of Dream. I drew this, and I had...
This is yours?
Well, I had Stanislas Kostka do the painting because I don't have the skills, and he does.
That's fantastic.
So,
That's so appropriate because, up on Wapo Hill, it always strikes me that you have the 365 view of the valley. And
correct.
I think that's a very, almost like a sacred place in the
sacred
valley.
place. You feel it, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't
totally.
you?
A very highly energistic place, and I believe that's because the Native Americans were there, for centuries.
Yeah.
Hence Wapo Hill, as it was called, Napa Wapo, north, south, east, and west.
Yeah.
Dear friends, it changed in the 1820s, became Napa with 2P or 1P, depending on the spelling. And we've seen that together at the museum we did at the Oakville Wine Merchant.
Yes.
We have the whole history of Napa Valley. But Sasha, another novel I want to go through.
Okay.
Because this one I did not know, so Sasha brought a surprise. I love it. Dancing on the Spider's Web. Look at this beautiful cover. So I'm going to put it here. Tell us about this one.
Well, the cover was designed by a Sonoma artist.
Aha.
Her name is Dorothy Smith.
Okay.
And I just loved it because she managed to capture this novel, it's set in the 1970s, which was an interesting time to live through. And it's in Napa and San Francisco. So, and the main characters in this one are actually from Napa. They grew up in Napa, the one you were asking me about, the very different Napa of, probably born in the 1950s, coming of age in the 70s, amidst all the changes and everything that's going on. But the main character in this one is the daughter of, the granddaughter of farm workers who came here.
Okay.
And she's a medical student. And she decides, after 2 years of medical school, to take a break and see something of life because all she's ever done is gone to school. But she comes back and she reunites with somebody she knew from Napa High School. And so it was fun to go back and put these characters in Napa at a very pivotal time because, as you know, the 70s began the transformation
for sure
of this valley, and they're the ones that kind of think of it as this quiet little place known for its mental hospital, this Napa State Hospital.
Yeah, that's right.
That was really what we were kind of.
Really?
Oh yeah, people used to.
That's maybe why I should stay forever. Some of us need help. So I love your title or your capturing first line. Dear friends, listen to this. Is love incompatible with intelligence? Question mark. Boom. That's how you start. And then Sarah Glass, the character, can answer most questions except this one. Can you? So why this question?
Well, I think that's the question that drives her all the way through, because obviously to have gotten to the point where she's a medical student, she's very intelligent. And I drew a lot on my son's, my son is a doctor.
Yeah.
And so I was constantly training his experience for her experiences, but although he's considerably younger than she was. She's like just not sure if being that intelligent has cut her off from the other experiences of life, just
That's
love
right.
and pleasures and all that. So she gives herself, she calls it a month to live, and she comes to San Francisco during the summer in the 1970s. And,
pretty cool time.
Pretty cool time.
What an era, 1970 San Francisco.
Oh, it was.
Hence the airport is called Milk, for Harvey Milk,
Yeah.
and all what happened. I mean, how many people moved to Berkeley, San Francisco in 1968, 69, 70, right?
Drawn by the idea of the freedom to discover who they are and to be that fully and with, great pleasure. So that's where she lands herself. And just for a month, she said, but then she gets drawn in.
Of course.
She meets other characters like you've just described who've come to San Francisco to really feel free, and transforms her life.
Wow.
And then they land back in Napa.
This is maybe the first one to read, and then we move into The Island Where Time Begins.
Maybe.
Right?
Maybe, yeah.
Shall you recommend this sequence?
I guess so. I guess so.
But this is a cool concept, and you asking, obviously in the book's great question, as an example, this one, incompatibility, reinventing yourself, escaping and resetting who we are as people. And whether it's in Tonga, or in her case, to San Francisco, in the key era time. And I think we all need this, specifically after a few years of what we've lived, right?
Yes, I think so.
I mean, what could younger people than us do these days? I mean, it's pretty crazy time. What's your view of it?
I think, though, that they feel more citizens of the world than even we did. I mean, I know in my generation, and I'm a lot older than you are.
Well, not a lot, but we share a lot of similar stories.
Everyone wanted to go to Europe. That was our dream. And we went and opened up the world.
Yes.
I mean, we discovered coffee was not stuff that came out of a can.
That's right.
That your mother made and boiled to pieces. I remember having my first cup of coffee in Paris and going, oh, and bread and cheese and all these things, and we were just discovering that world.
That's
and,
right.
And then bringing it back. Mm-hmm. That love of good food and wine. People, I know that even the soldiers from World War II who went to France and went to Italy, they came back having discovered wine.
That's right.
And so we all went to Europe, I think, and then some people went further on to India, and just so my children, I mean, they've been hopping on planes ever since they were born.
That's right.
We lived in Europe, my husband and I, and our two children, and they just, I think they really feel like
citizen of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing too.
Yeah. No, it's a positive time. It's just taking an interesting change to illustrate this. Forgive me.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, please.
Well, I was just going to say, and then all of a sudden it shut down with COVID, and here we are. Nobody could go anywhere. And so I think that
There was, what is, sorry, your view, Sasha, we've seen each other several times, obviously, during COVID here in Napa. There's a lot of positive aspect of it, besides people obviously being sick, sadly losing their lives or other consequences. Fundamentally, in the American sociological analytics we'll do of those 24 months, I feel, as a lover of America, I feel there's a lot of positive that happened throughout this time.
Oh, I think so. I think so. I think people really had to question what was important.
Yeah.
And learned that they could entertain themselves at home.
That's right.
I did more gardening
For sure.
than I'd ever done in my life, but and then to realize what a privilege it is.
Yes.
To be able to go beyond your own world, and so when I can get back on a plane to go to France, I haven't traveled yet since COVID really, but I think we'll go back with renewed appreciation. But we kind of had to find our foundation again.
Yes.
of like home and family and the things that really matter.
Very well said. And I feel, in addition, American people versus us in Europe receiving at home, feeling comfortable to say, come over and have a glass of wine. Come over and we'll have just a course, but let's be together.
Yeah.
Let's slow down. We don't have to meet in a restaurant, in a hotel, or in a bar. Let's, invite each other's in our own environment. And I feel that was always something I thought was a little strange. You meet people, but you meet them somewhere else, not in their home. And they felt maybe a little uncomfortable, and I think it broke this barrier.
Yeah.
So within that time, Sasha, a big question I have for you.
Okay.
And I know
Mine first.
everybody is dying to hear this one, is you're a great journalist. What do you think about the evolution of journalism? So we have a growth of social platforms. We have a growth of, from Facebooks to Twitter to all the debates we have. You are hardcore, historical, phenomenal journalist. That I know that because I'm often on the other side when you give us a call and I answer questions, and you do enormous amount of homework and you fact-finding, incredible and all that. So where do you think journalism is going these days?
Well, that is the million-dollar question, because I chose to work at a community newspaper because I think it's so important. And I remember when I was at Berkeley, our professor said, "You guys think you're hotshots? You think you're going to leave here and go to work for the New York Times, but your first job's going to be somewhere at a community newspaper in America, and some of you will stick with it when you realize that it's so valuable." I mean, that's something that's really vanishing right now. The little community newspapers. We're so lucky that we have a daily newspaper in Napa that and
an amazing
sometimes
one.
I feel like we're holding on by a thread too, but papers are vanishing. And the thing, this is my prejudice as a very old school journalist, that we really try to be objective and to tell the stories. And right now, we were talking about this before you and I started talking. You can go to so many places on social media.
Yes.
And you can find a group who agreed exactly with you.
Yes.
And you can confine your world to that. And you can hear then just what you want to hear.
That's it.
And you don't hear anything beyond that. And that's very scary. And I think that's contributed to this tribalism in our country and the problems where, it used to be you could be liberal, you could be conservative, but you could talk to each other. And you could just say, we disagree, but you had some fundamental agreement on reality.
That's right.
And now you can create separate realities on social media, internet, whatever, and not go beyond that. And that's a real danger. So, as a journalist, you really, really are trained to try to tell both sides, no matter what you believe. One of my very good professors said, just be aware that you're never entirely subjective, because you may talk to someone for
sure.
an hour, and then you go back and you choose 3 quotes that they said. So you're not entirely subjective. You're choosing,
for sure.
you know, and you can choose the quotes that make the person look brilliant and wonderful, or you can choose the quotes that make them look dumb. And so you have to be aware of that.
Yeah.
And so we really do try to tell the real story. If you have a blog, if you're on social media, if you can say anything you want, and you're not bound by those same principles. So I hope that journalism prevails. I hope that I'm so encouraged to see people still going into journalism.
Yes.
And it's going to be different. I mean, we'll reach the point where print newspapers don't exist anymore.
You think?
I do. But there'll still be newspapers, and they'll just be online.
As long as we have great journalists like you and so many of you watching.
Yeah, telling real stories.
I really believe, too, traditional education of journalism, not just a wannabe journalist. When you write an article at school, in France, as an example, you write the introduction, the thesis, the antithesis, the rationale, and the conclusion. I mean, there's a whole structure to how you write an essay. It's not just writing randomly.
Yeah.
There's a structure to defend eventually an opinion. It's not just, this is what I believe, full stop.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad to hear you say that. And how do you think this next evolution will avoid this bipolarization of American journalism or opinion? And what I mean by this is, I remember my grandparents were old school teachers, Sasha. We were at the table on Sunday. It was fabulous. My sister and I look forward to it. My grandparents and great aunt disagreed politically all the time. The table was moving. They loved each other. They spent 5 hours disagreeing, and they loved each other at the end. And they said, you had a great point on this one. I loved your counter argument, and I agree with you now. Or you defended this. They were even debating for the fun of it at the dinner table. Cheese, dessert, we all ate too much, drank too much, because we never left. And as kids, we listened to this phenomenal theatrical stage, and we loved it because we learned so much. And it was really not saying, I disagree, so I'm leaving the table.
Yeah, exactly.
I would not necessarily agree with you for those reasons. So are we going to go back to this?
Oh, I hope so. Because that's the fun of life. If we were all the same,
if
we all thought the same, why would it be interesting?
That's it.
And so I used to really love debating and talking. Jack Cakebread, the late Jack Cakebread.
Yes.
Wonderful guy, very conservative, as you probably know, politically.
Sure.
Very conservative, and yet you could talk to him and hear his ideas and argue, and that's fun. And so to have reached this point where people think they're enemies because they feel differently about things is just very sad.
That's right.
Because the power, especially of democracies like France, like America, is when the people find a meeting ground.
That's it.
And then that's the real strength, that collaboration. So I hope we can get back to it. I don't know how we're going to get there, but...
I'm hopeful because I'm an optimist and I believe America is an amazing place. And I love to see the fact that we went so far on each end that the pendulum obviously is going to swing back somewhere in the middle. And that's where the world belongs, right?
I think so. And I think it's going to be the planet Earth. Because I know you're a great supporter of the environment and sustainable and everything you do, all your initiatives are really supporting, helping to heal and the planet.
Yeah.
And so that's something that's going to affect everybody, no matter what you feel politically.
Exactly. It's going to be the place we all meet in the climate change, the understanding of sustainability, organic and biodynamic. I mean, with Anna Britton, as you know, on the same show, JCB Live, we've done 6 of the pillars of Napa Green. And it's exciting. We're getting amazing response online, and people are really fundamentally, and she's so good at explaining it, whether from wineries all the way to your home and what you can do as a citizen, from water to recycling to reducing to everything.
Yeah.
So, big last question.
Okay.
We have two. Are you working on a new one?
Oh, yeah, I am.
Ah, exciting.
Yeah.
Do you want to give us a little bit of a clue?
Well, this one it goes back to Napa Valley.
Yes.
And
So glad you are.
oh, well, you know, you are one of the people who's I've always found it extraordinary because here you are, a Frenchman, with this long and glorious history of France.
Thank you.
And yet you have such appreciation
Absolutely.
for the history of Napa Valley.
Yes.
And
love it.
And there is such a history here of everything. And so I'm bringing my characters back to Calistoga, which I love. I love Calistoga.
Oh.
And so that's...
And we just saw each other at the depot, Calistoga
at the
depot.
I was thinking about that, looking at that sign. What is it, 1868?
Correct.
Yeah.
You have such a great memory. That's when Sam Brannan really ended up finishing this amazing destination we're in, which is the train depot with the 6 cars, and where he had a distillery or brewery, which we're rebuilding.
Oh, it's so
We're
fun.
recreating history.
It's fun to see it come to life, just the same as the Oakville Grocery.
Thank you.
mean, that has become a little showplace with history and food and wine.
Yeah.
So it's like the future, the present, and the past all in one place. And I love that. And I imagine you're doing that with Elizabeth Spencer.
Absolutely.
I'm waiting to see what you're doing there. But
in a matter of days, Sasha is going to
Seriously?
be coming to see something special. Dear friends, we cannot tell you. But it's going to be great, and she's going to love it because it's right up her alley.
Yeah.
It's going to be museum-like
okay.
with a lot of history, invention, creation of what has happened, not only in the world of wine, but food.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very intriguing.
So, Sasha, the big question, the conclusion moment, if you don't mind looking at all our friends, and maybe you want to give everyone your perspective and advice on to live a life like you've done, because I feel, dear friends, Sasha, who I've been knowing for over 12 years now, and we became friends, and she come to a lot of our events. We have a lot of phenomenal discussion. She's a true phenomenal intellectual, a lady that has an amazing life, raised an incredible family, and managed, I think, which is so commending, both sides of literature, writing the novel and writing the facts of journalism in a phenomenal way. She's really the encyclopedia of Napa Valley, and as well, the amazing reporter of what happens in our community in such a great way, as well as our great friend from Unveils.
Oh, right, Sharon.
Sharon is amazing.
She's amazing.
Here
She's
we go, a big
wonderful.
kiss to Sharon. And many of you who are writing locally. So I'd love for you to conclude this amazing time together before you come back on the next book, to tell our friends anything you want to say. If they want to be a writer, if they want to be a journalist, or anything you want to say to the world from the famous Sasha Paulsen.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for
Pleasure.
your support and for letting me be in a position where I am being asked the questions.
Finally!
Instead of always asking the questions.
And you have so much to say. That's what I love. We could make this another hour, but we all know you're going to dinner shortly.
No, it's been great fun. I just say, follow your dreams.
Yeah.
I think that people say that again and again, but it somehow works.
Yeah.
I think you never end up living the life you imagine when you're 20 years old. You don't know where you're going to go or whom you're going to meet or what's going to happen. But if you can kind of stay true to that core, it is your life becomes exciting.
So the alchemy of dreams will help you to follow your dreams.
I love it. I love it.
But I love
The alchemy of dreams. That is.
Maybe it's a new book.
I'll steal it for a title.
And well, we wrote The Alchemy of the Senses, as
That's
you
right,
know,
you did. Yeah, that's
as you
a fabulous
have.
book.
And what is so exciting with this conclusion, Sasha, not that I should speak after your conclusion, but you really embody that, is you followed your dreams as an amazing Berkeley student in the right years, journalism, literature, novels, more, an amazing supporter of the community. And I really want to thank you for doing what you do in journalism, because the world is aware of our valley, of the passion we all have, and you document it so well. And for branching out and writing about those great books. So I'm going to go back to this one now. I want to read about love incompatible with intelligence. Yes or no?
Okay, I'll be interested to hear your answer.
Absolutely. Cheers, dear friends. Bon appetit.